A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. As Jesus passed by, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "Neither he nor his parents sinned. It is so that the works of God might be made visible through him. We have to do the works of the one who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." When he said this, he spat on the ground and made clay with the saliva, and smeared the clay on his eyes, and said to him, "Go, wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. So he went and washed, and came back able to see. His neighbors and those who had seen him earlier as a beggar said, "Isn't this the one who used to sit and beg?" Some said, "It is." But others said, "No, he just looks like him." But he said, "I am." So they said to him, "How were your eyes opened?" He replied, "The man called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes and told me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' So I went there and washed and was able to see." And they said to him, "Where is he?" He said, "I don't know." They brought the one who was once blind to the Pharisees. Now Jesus had made clay and opened his eyes on a Sabbath. So the Pharisees also asked him how he was able to see. He said to them, "He put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and now I see." So some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God because he does not keep the Sabbath." But others said, "How can a sinful man do such signs?" And there was division among them. So they said to the blind man again, "What do you have to say about him since he opened your eyes?" He said, "He is a prophet." Now the Jews did not believe that he had been born blind and gained his sight until they summoned the parents of the one who had gained his sight. They asked them, "Is this your son, who you say was born blind? How does he now see?" His parents answered and said, "We know that this is our son, and he was born blind. We do not know how he sees now, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him, he is of age. He can speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews. For the Jews had already agreed that if anyone acknowledged him as Christ, he would be expelled from the synagogue. For this reason, his parents said, "He is of age, question him." So a second time, they called the man who had been born blind and said to him, "Give God praise. We know that this man is a sinner." He replied, "If he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I do know is that I was blind and now I see." So they said to him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered them, "I told you already and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too?" They ridiculed him and said, "You are that man's disciple. We are disciples of Moses. But we know that God spoke to Moses, but we do not know where this one is from." The man answered and said to them, "This is what is so amazing, that you do not know where he is from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but if one is devout and does his will, he listens to him. It is unheard of that anyone ever opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he would not be able to do anything." They answered and said to him, "You were born totally in sin, and you are trying to teach us?" Then they threw him out. When Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, he found him and said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered and said, "Who is he, sir, that I may believe in him?" Jesus said to him, "You have seen him, and the one speaking with you is he." He said, "I do believe, Lord," and he worshiped him. Then Jesus said, "I came into this world for judgment, so that those who do not see might see, and those who do see might become blind." Some of the Pharisees who were with him heard this and said to him, "Surely we are not also blind, are we?" Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would have no sin. But now you are saying, 'We see,' and your sin remains." The Gospel of the Lord. Good morning. It is good for us to be here. We find ourselves here today in celebration of the fourth Sunday of Lent. How is Lent going for you? I'd like to invite you to think about Lent a little differently. I'd like to ask you to think about Lent as a time of attentiveness and gentleness. To be attentive means to notice, to see, or to recognize. Lent provides us an opportunity to increase our awareness of the death and resurrection of Jesus. But death and resurrection are constantly taking place within each of us if we are attentive to it. Life is a continuous process where the old and familiar ways can be reborn with new hope, new love, and new trust. Here, the death and resurrection of Jesus can happen within us if we are attentive to it. Lent can be a time of gentleness also. Gentleness involves a softness, a time to step back and think about the mystery of Christ within us. We step aside and let Christ in. A time of gentleness, softness, and solitude gives us an opportunity to listen to the voice within us. Jesus is speaking to us and to our inner life. The gentleness part is not only inside us. Christ's mystery that we ponder can also be very demanding in that we are also called to think about community and pay attention to other people and their needs. Attentiveness and gentleness can be thought of in terms of seeing with the heart. We think about the man born blind that Jesus met in the gospel story we just heard. He allowed Jesus to enter the reality of his blindness and cure him of it. By allowing the works of God to be made visible through him, he became able to lead other people to faith, even though not all of them accepted his testimony. He was able to see with his heart and understood more clearly who Jesus is and grows more in his ability to lead others to faith. He moves from not knowing Jesus to recognizing Jesus as a prophet, a man of God, the Son of Man, and in the end, worships Jesus as Lord. He becomes attentive to Jesus and gentle enough to step aside and let Jesus in. Maybe at this point in our Lenten journey, it is time for a tune-up. Lent is all about renewing our faith in God through Jesus Christ, his Son. We are encouraged throughout these 40 days of Lent to adopt some practice that will help us do that. Whatever we choose to do for Lent should in some way lead us away from ourselves and toward a deeper awareness of charity to other people in need. Perhaps it will help us see with our hearts Not all of us are called to give dramatic witness to God's word, as was the man born blind we heard about in the gospel. But we are called to live the gospel in our lives. Perhaps our Lenten tune-up can direct us to try to be more attentive and gentle, to see with the heart. Maybe we haven't really thought much about Lent, or haven't done much to try to observe it, but that's okay. There's still time. We face difficulties. We face obstacles. The man born blind in the gospel story faced obstacles. The Pharisees, his neighbors, even his own parents. Yet he was able to see Christ with his heart. We may never experience the drama of a person in our lives who has been cured by Jesus, but we surely must know someone who can see with their heart. Maybe there's someone we work with or go to school with that just seems to be good and well-liked, that gets along with everybody, never talks badly about anybody, and never complains. Their gentleness and attentiveness to goodness are recognized. Can we try to be more like them? Think about someone you know or may have known in your life that reflects the attentiveness and gentleness of seeing with their heart. I'd like to give you an example. I'd like you to think about Sister Carmeline. Sister Carmeline was an elderly sister here at St. Turibius a few years back. She was very elderly when she came to us. She wasn't here very long. And after she left here, she went to the mother house, and from there, she went to heaven. But I'll never forget her. I loved her in that she had such attentiveness and gentleness. It just touched me so well. In those years, I used to work as a pharmacist at Northwestern, and one time while she was here, Sister was in the hospital at Northwestern, and I knew one of the nursing supervisors on the floor where Sister was. So her name was Kathy, and I said, "Kathy, go visit Sister Carmeline." She says, "Oh, I already have, and I know all about her." We're all talking about her on the floor. All the nurses, the doctors, the aides, the hospital workers, the therapists, all couldn't believe what a wonderful, gentle person Sister Carmeline was. She had a reputation. And I went to visit her on my lunch hour, and I said, "Sister, would you like to pray a rosary?" And I'll never forget, she took her hand out from under the blanket, and she had a rosary in her hand, all ready to go. So we prayed the rosary. In order to prepare to do this, I wanted to try to know more about her. So I spoke with Sister Monica, who lived with her for many years. And without knowing at all what I was going to talk about, Sister Monica described Sister Carmeline as a deep, that's the attentive part, gentle soul. She had a gentleness and love with her first graders, and she wanted to make sure that they knew and loved Jesus. And her attentiveness was that she was a tough cookie. She would accept only what was the best from her students. And she lived and loved a life of poverty. She didn't even have soap in her room. If she needed to wash her hands, she would use the soap in the community washrooms. And when they'd question her about it, she'd say, "I have everything I need." I'm not here trying to eulogize Sister, but this is to give an example of an account of a living example. To be in her presence was a living example of seeing with the heart, of holiness. And this is what we strive to grow in during Lent. Pope John Paul II, now St. John Paul II, wrote, "Holiness is not perfection according to human criteria. It is not reserved for a small number of exceptional persons. It is for everyone." I invite you to try to think of holiness in terms of attentiveness and gentleness, to see with the heart. Look around and cherish and emulate those you know who can see with the heart. Lent is so much more than giving up chocolate for 40 days, or weighing yourself on Ash Wednesday and then again on Easter Sunday. Lent is a time to practice something that helps us in some way identify with Christ and with people in need. Lent can be an important time for kids and for families. We look for good in our brothers and sisters and try our best to get along with them. We know that our parents are not perfect, but we can look for good in them and know that they want only what is best from us and for us, and we should thank them for that. We know that our kids are not perfect, but when we think about how much better our kids are than so many of their peers, living to see with the heart helps us to become closer to Jesus and helps us to bring him to other people. When we live Lent attentively and gently, seeing with the heart, Easter, when it comes, can be truly a celebration. We will share in the joy of Christ's resurrection. We will know him better and that he has come into our lives. We will become better people and share that joy with other people. May God continue to bless us.